Hello YIS Media family. Hello book lovers. How are you? Today we present to you an excerpt from a great book titled Make Today Count by John C. Maxwell. Subscribe to the media, like and share the video, and if you have an opinion on the story, leave it in the comment section. Thank you. Now directly to the narrative.
Growth. In 1974, a critical event occurred in my life that would change it forever. I met Kurt Kampmeyer of Success Motivation Incorporated, for breakfast in Lancaster, Ohio. While we were eating, Kurt posed a question. "John," he asked, "what is your plan for personal growth?" Never at a loss for words, I tried to find things in my life that might qualify for growth. I told him about the many activities I was engaged in throughout the week. And I went into a speech about how hard I worked and the gains I was making in my organization. I must have talked for 10 minutes, until I finally ran out of gas. Kurt listened patiently, but then he finally smiled and said, "You don't have a personal plan for growth, do you?" "No," I finally admitted. "You know," Kurt said simply, "growth is not an automatic process." And that's when it hit me. I wasn't doing anything intentional or strategic to make myself better. And in that moment, I made the decision, I will develop and follow a personal growth plan for my life. That night, I went home and talked to Margaret about my conversation with Kurt and what I had learned that day. I showed her the workbook and tapes that Kurt was selling. I knew those resources could help us grow. The cost was $745, a huge sum for us at the time. We couldn't afford it, but we couldn't afford not to get it either. Up till then I had always believed in my own potential, but I had never thought about having a way to increase and reach it. We recognized that Kurt wasn't just trying to make a sale. He was offering a way for us to change our lives and achieve our dreams. A couple of important things happened that night. First, we figured out how to scrape together the money to buy the resources. It would require us to make sacrifices in our already tight budget for the next 6 months. But more important, Margaret and I made a commitment to grow together as a couple. From that day on, we learned together, we traveled together, and we sacrificed together in order to grow. It was a wise decision. While too many couples grow apart, we were growing together. Making the decision to seek and experience growth daily. If you're ready to make the decision to pursue growth and experience improvement every day, then do the following. Answer the question, what is my potential? I saw a story about a St. Louis doctor who met a young man in high school who had lost his hand at the wrist. When the doctor asked about his handicap, the teenager responded, "I don't have a handicap, sir. I just don't have a right hand." The doctor later learned that the young man was one of the leading scorers on his high school football team. The greatest handicap a person has is not realizing his potential. What dreams do you have that are just waiting to be fulfilled? What gifts and talents are inside you that are dying to be drawn out and developed? The gap between your vision and your present reality can only be filled through a commitment to maximize your potential. Make a commitment to change. Author William Feather said, "The only thrill worthwhile is the one that comes from making something out of yourself." To make something out of yourself, you need to be willing to change, for without change, there can be no growth. The problem most people have is that they want things to stay the same yet also get better. Obviously, that can't happen. If you truly want to grow, then commit yourself to not only accepting change, but seeking it. Set growth goals. When I first began going after personal growth using Kurt Kampmeyer's materials, I pursued a growth plan that was foundational rather than specific. And that was okay then. I was in my mid-20s and I was just getting started. But as I got older, more experienced, and further in my career, I started to focus my growth in a few key areas. One was communication. That made sense for me, not only because I spoke to audiences 4 or 5 times a week, but also because I had some natural ability in that area. Another area was leadership, something I needed to do well every day of my life to succeed in my career. As you plan your growth, it will benefit you greatly to be focused. Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, said, "The great mystery isn't that people do things badly but that they occasionally do a few things well. The only thing that is universal is incompetence. Strength is always specific." Nobody ever commented, for example, that the great violinist Jaska Heifetz probably couldn't play the trumpet very well. 40. In the chapter on priorities, I encouraged you to focus your priorities in 3 main areas: requirement, return, and reward. You should use the same criteria for your personal growth. Focus on growing in your areas of greatest strength, not your weaknesses, and grow in areas that will add value to you, personally and professionally. Learn to enjoy the journey. Eugene Griesman, author of The Path to High Achievement, says that most grandmasters of chess learn and relearn chess moves, gambits, and combinations over a period of 15 years before they win their first world title. That's a fifth of most people's lives. If you're going to spend that much time learning something, then you had better learn to like it. If the destination appeals to you, but you cannot enjoy the journey it takes to get there, you would be wise to re-examine your priorities to make sure you have them right. Put yourself in a growth environment. I've often wondered what would have happened when I came home to Margaret that day in 1974 after seeing Kurt Kampmeier, if she had said she didn't want to grow with me and that $745 was too much money for that personal growth kit. I wonder, because I know that her companionship and partnership on the personal growth journey have made all the difference. By working together to improve ourselves, we created a growth environment that helped us to broaden our horizons and live a life that we never could have imagined when we first got married. And that environment continued as we raised our children. When Elizabeth and Joel Porter were growing up, their mental, emotional, and spiritual growth were our highest priorities. I've been told that certain species of fish will grow according to the size of their environment. Put them in a tiny aquarium, and they remain small even at adulthood. Release them into a huge natural body of water, and they grow to their intended size. People are similar. If they live in a harsh and limiting environment, they stay small. But put them someplace that encourages growth, and they will expand to reach their potential. Managing the discipline of growth. When I finished working through Kurt Kampmeier's materials, my appetite was whetted for more growth. And it was then that I determined to practice this discipline of growth. Every day I will grow on purpose with my plan. Margaret and I continued to do much of our growing together, but each of us also began tailoring our growth plans to our individual strengths and needs. One of the results of learning is that you realize how far you still need to go, and the more we learned, the hungrier we were for more growth. As you prepare to embrace the disciplines of growth, I want to encourage you to do the following. Make it your goal to grow in some way every day. In 1972, high school swimmer John Neighbor watched the Olympics on television and was inspired. He was already an excellent swimmer, but he began thinking about making the leap to become an Olympic-caliber athlete. He figured he would have to lower his time by 4 seconds in 4 years. For you and me, that might not be too difficult, because we have such a long way to go. But for someone like Neighbor, who was already well trained, that seemed impossible. Elite racers think in terms of improving by fractions of a second. Thinking about that fact, he suddenly figured out how to approach the task. If he planned to train 10 months a year for the next 4 years, he would have to improve by 1/10 of a second every month. It was still a great challenge, but he believed he could do it and be ready for the 1976 Olympics. Neighbor had the right idea. And it worked. He came home with 5 medals, 4 of them gold. If you and I want to be successful in our growth, we must adopt a similar mindset. If we desire to improve a little every day and plan it that way, then we can make great progress over the long haul. Have a time and plan to grow. One of my favorite personal growth quotations is from author and speaker Earl Nightingale. I came across it more than 20 years ago, and it made a profound impact on me. Nightingale said, if a person will spend 1 hour a day on the same subject for 5 years, that person will be an expert on that subject. That quotation changed how I planned my personal growth. I started spending an hour a day, 5 days a week, studying leadership. Over time, that practice changed my life. To make your growth intentional, strategic, and effective, you need to think it through and plan it well. To give you an idea, I'll share how I plan my growth. I listen to audio lessons every week. First of all, I'm always on the lookout for good teaching on tape or CD. Every week, I listen to 7 audio lessons. Usually, their contents break down like this: 4 are average, 2 are good to excellent, and only 1 may be outstanding. If a lesson is bad, I hit the eject button after 5 minutes. For every tape, I try to determine what the takeaway is. The one item I can immediately apply and do some thinking to try to capitalize on it. And I have every outstanding lesson transcribed so that I can read it, mark it up, and extract every bit of gold from it. I read 2 books every month. If you were to go to my office, you'd find 2 stacks of books on the work table near my desk. Those are the books that are on deck, waiting to be read. They are sorted into 2 groups, and I read 1 of each every month. The first stack is of excellent books that I expect will make a strong impact on me. During the month, I spend a lot of time with that kind of book, digesting its ideas, marking the pages, pulling out ideas, and thinking about how I can apply the concepts to my life. I also file what I learn. I'll explain that in a moment. The second stack contains average books I intend to speed read. They may offer just a few concepts that I want to get at quickly but don't warrant a careful reading. I set an appointment every month. One of the things I look forward to most is listening to and learning from others. So every month, I set an appointment with someone who can help me grow. Before the meeting, I prepare a list of questions that correspond to an area in which I need to grow and in which the person has achieved success. I also do any other homework that I think may be necessary, such as reading any books the person has written, but the success of the interview is determined most by the questions I prepare. My conversations with John Wooden, which I referenced in Chapter 1, were the result of one of those appointments. It was a time of empowerment for me. Whenever I spend time with great people, I expect to learn great things from them. As you plan your strategy for growth and set aside time for it, don't forget that the more you grow, the more specific the growth should be to your needs and strengths. And any time you discover that a book, tape, or conference doesn't possess the value you'd hoped for, move on. Don't waste your time on anything of low value. File what you learn. I have to admit it, I am a compulsive filer. Whenever I find something that I think will be valuable to me in the future for learning, teaching, or writing, I file it. When I hear a great tape or CD and have it transcribed, I file quotations from it. If it's really good, I might even file the whole transcript. When I read a book, I mark every quotation I want to capture and jot down what subject to file it under. If you look in the front of every good book I've read, you'll see a list of page numbers and subjects written in it. When I'm done with the book, I give it to my assistant, who copies the material and files it for me. I've been doing this for 40 years. I want to encourage you to file quotations, stories, and ideas that you find as you learn. Not only will this habit yield a great harvest of material for your future use, it will also keep you more highly focused, force you to evaluate what you're reading, and help you to bypass the junk and go for the good stuff that will stimulate you and help you grow. Apply what you learn. Mike Obrashoff, author of It's Your Ship, says, up is not an easy direction. It defies gravity, both cultural and magnetic. 41 Often the most difficult part of the upward climb of growth is putting into practice what you learn. Yet that is where the true value is. The final test of any learning is always application. If what you're learning can be used in some way to help and improve you or others, then it is worth the effort. Your growth decision today. Where do you stand when it comes to growth today? Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. Have I already made the decision to seek and experience improvement daily? 2. If so, when did I make that decision? 3. What exactly did I decide? Your growth discipline every day. Based on the decision you made concerning growth, what is the one discipline you must practice today and every day in order to be successful?
Conclusion. You really can make today great. The key is to make the most important decisions of your life and then to manage those decisions. Anyone who does that consistently can make today a masterpiece. I hope the idea of the daily dozen doesn't overwhelm you. I know that you can't tackle all of them at one time. So here is what I suggest. First, determine what 12, or 10 or 15 decisions are important to you. Start with my list of 12 and modify it according to your own life. Then begin working on the decisions. Every month, decide which decision you will make and how you will manage it. In a year's time, you'll be amazed by how focused your life is and how it is going in the direction you desire. By making today great, you can make your life great, because when you take care of today, tomorrow will take care of itself.